I've been involved in this since probably around 2011, maybe 2010, 29. I got back from England and I was living in Santa Fe, and I became friends with Clifford Carnicom. He is the independent scientist who did the lion's share of collection from northern New Mexico of what the jets were dropping in the azure skies. And he also collected data from his HEPA filter and from precipitation. So I became friends with him, by accident. You know how that goes. And we would spend our breakfast time every week or two going over the latest things he had found. And we did the red wine test, and we looked at my saliva. I had fibers in my saliva. We drew blood from myself and probably 24 people at that time. It was a very small amount of people that we had to work with in the early 2000s. And then as I'm standing looking over his shoulder through his 300 power microscope, I saw the entities that were in the fiber sucking the iron out of my red blood cells. And I realized that this was big. I had no lesions on my body, nothing Morgellons. You could not tell at all that it was in me. But we conjectured that anyone breathing what it was falling from the chemical trails from the late 90s or the mid 90s to now has this pathogen in their blood system. And it can become active in some people to the extent that it is trying to get out of the skin, and it can make lesions. And then all manner of symptoms attack these people. And many people, I wish I could give you a number. Clifford recently did a survey, and I will get to that late in the slideshow. But probably we figure I think he has a sampling of 30,000, but I think it's much higher. And it appears to be many of the coastal cities, particularly Florida, Texas, and California. So these warmer areas, and that was sort of the wake-up call for me. Then my publisher asked me if I could write a book on chemtrails, so I wrote a book on chemtrails with Clifford's help, and that was published in 2014. And as I was doing all the research to do this, and how I research, you might be interested. This is a classified program. It's called Project Cloverleaf, or at least it was. I don't know what it's called now. And I did the research on the internet because I couldn't very well go to the library and take out 5 big books on this particular technology. And I quickly gathered many sources who were willing to help me. There were books I read, old books. Angels Don't Play This Harp by Nick Begich and Gene Manning in 1995. I read that one, reread it. I read other books by Smith and Will Thomas. And I mean, I read everything I could get my hands on, took notes, and then hit the internet. And I have a master's in historiography, so I'm a pretty good researcher. And I found that most of the papers and patents and military conferences with PowerPoints and everything, it's all on the net. It's all there. Not that I have access to everything, I realize that, but I began to just read everything I could, and I was able to slowly put a picture together of how it was working for the 2014 book. And that book is pretty much just a meat and potatoes book, I call it. It goes through all the hurricanes that we had in those years, all of which were geoengineered. And I break each one of them down to show how that is done. And I also had a chapter on Morgellons. Yeah?
Whenever you're ready, we can...
Is the other one good?
Yeah, this is good, and you can sit, you want to sit right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep, so if you slide that way so you're in...
How does Morgellons get in here?
You breathe it in. That's the major way. It's coming down from the atmosphere.
Is it metallic salts like these other chemtrails?
It's accompanied by them because they're conductive. And it needs conductivity.
Is it gonna work for you?
Yeah, I just need to be close to my little button.
You sit and I'll figure this out.
Where did you put that other mic?
Okay.
Excuse me, sorry. Where did you put that other mic?
I give it
The
to her.
mic you were using?
That's hers.
Oh, that was the one you were handing me.
And this is the, yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Where can we move this to then? There's one
testing. Is this one on?
more. Not quite yet, give me a sec.
Okay.
Do we want to move this over here or something? So people can-
No, it's for audience feedback for the filming.
Okay. It won't pick up much from, people from way back there talking. This won't really pick it up.
So we're gonna have to hand it around, I think.
I think they'll probably, yeah, somebody will run it. Maybe me.
Ready?
I'm just gonna hang out.
Go ahead.
So then, when I finished that book, I had a whole host of new questions. Because this is how I see now, this is how you research classified projects, is you find answers to quite a bit, and those all bring up more questions, and then you go back to the material, and now you find new material, and you expand, and I expanded, as you see in the new book, to the space fence, because the space fence had been tabled for years since the Reagan administration with George H.W. Bush and Dick Cheney. It had become the ballistic missile defense system under Clinton, but it disappeared, it went black. So now it was back, but only with an ionized atmosphere, I realized. It needed the chemical trails from the jet fuel and supplementary systems in order to make the Earth atmosphere, the troposphere, more like the ionosphere, so that many thousands and thousands and thousands of wireless operations could be run. All military in nature, all intelligence, all defense contractor, owned lock, stock, and barrel by the very interests that Dwight Eisenhower told us about when he was leaving office, the military-industrial intelligence complex. So I now set to work writing the Space Fence book, with a whole twisted way of looking at it now. I had my sights set on it, and I also had the help of one of the architects, one of the tower erectors of HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project in Gakona, Alaska, Billy Hayes. And Billy had heard me on Coast to Coast, and so he got in touch with me, and he began feeding me very inside information because he had basically belonged to the CIA since he was 8 years old. He was an MK Ultra survivor. And Billy's programming was entirely in electromagnetics. So all I had to do was ask him a decent question, and it's as though he'd open a file cabinet and out would pour everything, and I taped everything he said on Skype. So I have thousands of hours, really, or well, I don't know about that, maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500 hours of Billy talking about how the technology worked in his day. And slowly I also attracted the attention of other scientists, two who had left NASA, and they began to share with me some of the newer science, some of the electric universe science. And so that's kind of my history of how I do this. People think, well, yeah, Elana, you've got to have a master's or a PhD in plasma physics to do this kind of thing. Well, I don't think so. I think you just have to be kind of smart and be an absolute obsessive disciplinarian in your life so that you are working every minute of every day and waking up in the morning with a whole new head full of thoughts that must have come while I was asleep. I can't imagine where else they come from. And so that's what I did. This book is doing very well. Some Washington, D.C. people have gotten hold of it and are buying it by the dozen and are passing it out to people. And my hope is that at least some of the people who don't know anything about this will find their way to this book. It is at this point, ironically and sort of humorously, the only book so far on this incredibly important topic. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me that we are able to be so asleep. Is it like sinking?
And if you can tighten, not someone.
Silver, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Is that good? So that's sort of a small history, and now I've started the third and last, I hope, book on this, which will have completely expended my biology background and my ability to penetrate this any deeper. And that is a book on synthetic biology. So I'm going to, I've changed the format tonight because LA Skywatch has had me here several times. I want to reward them for having listened to me with beginner presentations. I need to ask, how many of you know almost nothing about the geoengineering and the chemtrails and all that? Okay, not too many. Would you do me the service of saving your questions to the end? I'm not going to talk about the difference between a chemtrail and a contrail. Been there, done that. I'm not going to talk about HARP and how the HARP works, how the HARP technology. There are many, many ionosphere heaters now. Most of them are mobile. Most of them are smaller. So I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the weather. I'm not going to talk about the California fires. What I am going to talk about is something that is a burning issue for me now as I slowly begin to see why that 5G is coming. Yeah, it's the wireless connection. So let's go through, and to start with, let me see if I can get a little more where I can actually do this. Sorry.
Just rotate this one a little bit and stuff.
Right on my toe.
Okay, is it good? All right, I can see now. Okay, so on the cover of my book, I put the planet Earth surrounded by a ring. And that does have to do with the space fence. And it's very simple. As we launch rockets, and they're mostly sounding rockets with either they're carrying satellites or they're doing research up there. They're taking readings of all the sensors that they've dropped in the upper atmosphere. As those rockets go skyward, they leave a tremendous flotsam and jetsam trail. And that flotsam and jetsam trail bears the same chemical signature as what is coming out of the JP8 fuel combustion chambers of our jets. Those are military and commercial. It is the same chemical signature as is injected into fracking wells, hydraulic fracturing wells, oil wells. It is the same chemical signature as is injected below wind turbines in wind farms. What we have here is a concerted effort to use chemistry and electromagnetics for full spectrum dominance over planet Earth. They are turning the Earth into a machine. It is what Dr. Rosalie Bertell, that great epidemiologist that I admired before she died 2012, she wrote a book about it, and I'll have a quote in here for you. So the reason I put the ring around planet Earth is that's exactly what Billy Hayes led me to see, is that when those rockets shoot up there, they are leaving this trail of a chemical signature. It is filled with nanoparticles of heavy metals, conductive metals. It is also filled with sensors, nano, on a nano scale. And it has microprocessors for communication, two-way communication. They are collecting data. And for when it goes up into the stratosphere, the upper atmosphere, slowly that detritus coming out the back of the rockets will start to settle. Some of it will go into centrifugal motion with the Earth, and slowly it will settle down, 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 and make a ring around the equator. And I will show a short clip of a film here of that, what is formed up there. And I asked Billy, I said, so what is that? I mean, is it for communication? Because I know about the military's C4 needs, the command, control, communications, and cyber warfare. And he said, if I were you, I'd think of it as a CD-ROM. They're collecting data and recording it on that, and they will use that as a means of communication in the solar system when we start going out there again. So that's how I think of it, and that's why it's important to put it up there. I'm not going to go into Saturn. If you buy the book, you can go to chapter 8, I believe, where I talk about CERN. I call it the Temple of CERN. And I talk about the Saturnalia Brotherhood at NASA. Yeah, there's a lot going on here that's much more than, oh, they're going to kill us. Oh, they just want more profit. They just want more control. No, there is an entirely esoteric thing going on that I'm slowly piecing together. So here's a document that some of you may recognize. It's been up on the net for years and years and years. Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. This came out in, I believe it was 1993. And it is a plan of sorts. It's a very long document. But it explains what the military has in mind for weather engineering, which will lead to a host of other things that they want to be doing, all for a space age. And as I've said before, many times, you've probably seen me on the net say it, we are in a space age now. It's just that you haven't really been told that it's militarized space age. Not at all the one President Kennedy had envisioned when he was attempting to plan something with Khrushchev and work with Russia for space. So let's see how we're doing. This is from the Weather as a Force Multiplier. And these are, well, this is, wait, did I go forward again? Yeah. This is from that document. And so let's just kind of take a look at these. First of all, we have now. I don't know, is this going to work? We have now. That was back then. That was back in 1993. 2005, 2015, 2025. So here, now we look at these little, so chemicals, yes, the chemicals began back in the 90s, and they're in the stratosphere to drop down into our atmosphere. ADV is aerospace delivery vehicles. That's our jets. So yeah, that's going. Let's see what it does, okay? Goes over here, builds a little, and then evens out. And it's still going on to this day, okay? All right, let's go up here. GWN, what is that? Global Weather Network, okay? And then they're going to add sensors to that, all on a nano scale. They're very tiny. And then CompMod is computer modeling, and COM is communications. So that is going, and WFSE is Weather Force Support Element, and VRWX is Virtual Weather. You know what virtual weather means? It means not real. It means computerized weather. That's what we have now. People ask me all the time, is there any real weather left? No, not that I know of. I'm in touch with people all over the world. Not that I know of, there's no real weather. There is real weather coming off the South Pacific. And that weather is a moisture system that is quickly picked up by the computers and is immediately shaped and formed, of course, bypassing California and heading north so that California gets no moisture, because California has been used for years as an experiment. And so that goes up to Oregon and Washington. We get some of that moisture up there. We have very different cloud structures up there, though it seems like nobody in my town even notices. And then it goes up and they hook it onto the jet stream that they control. There's a hump up above Vancouver Island. And then they send it east for weather manipulation. It can go make tornadoes, for tornadoes, shifting low and high pressure in Kansas. It can be for flooding in Texas. It can be for heat waves. It can be, you name it. It can be anything. So that's the only natural weather system I know of, and that's always the way the weather is. It comes from the South Pacific, and it's headed east. And it is moved by means of laser systems. That's how they move it. And then when they get to the mainland, into the heartland, as we call it in America, then that will be with NEXRADs, those big golf ball looking radar installations across the country. So there's a lot of ways to do it. WSACs is another one. That's the wet surface air coolers that are on nuclear towers and on industrial towers. They'll produce a lot of steam just to feed that weather system and keep moving it, keep moving it. And meanwhile, they're zapping it with laser, they're zapping it with radar, they're zapping it in order to keep it moving, steer it, and produce effects, because they're still learning how to handle their new toy. But they know a lot more than they did back in the what I call the hurricane days. They know a lot about it. The hurricane that we recently had on the Atlantic coast, that was engineered. So here's my list from Clifford Carnicom's list. He introduced this list, basically. I've tweaked it a little bit back in 2005 in his still very good film Cloud Cover. So first we have weather engineering, and that is what they call geoengineering. This is essential to everything else. Everything else depends on the ability to control the weather. Okay? So next we have all sorts of operations. You probably see some of them and you think, oh, it was a meteor, they'll tell you. Yeah, it was a meteor. Oh, it was a mysterious light in the sky, whatever. It's chemical and electromagnetic operations are going on as they learn more and more about how to handle what is now a plasma environment. And what plasma is the fourth state of matter. It's, you could call it ionized gas is one way that you'll see it in the chemistry books. But it's a lot more than that. And there's a lot more going on with it than just trying to tweak it in our plasma environment. Then planetary geophysical operations, that's basically what I think was going on in Santa Rosa with the fire and Ventura. I think that they are cooperating with sustainable development UN programs in various cities like Santa Rosa, and they're redoing various communities. Certainly New Zealand's going through that right now as they are changing things around for the elites to be able to buy up real estate cheap and do something with it. I mean, there's a lot going on there where geoengineering is being used to control full spectrum dominance. That includes community life, and it includes all UN programs. So then we have what I was just reading on my way here on the jet. The latest is they're coming out with a plasma weapon, a new plasma weapon. Well, it's not new. They've been using it for years, but they're making it public. They've gone public with it now. It just came out yesterday. So directed energy weapons. This is all sorts of weapons that are from space, in space, also used in our atmosphere. And this means that, you know, there's a lot going on up there that's way beyond the NMOD agreements that we made years ago. No one's obeying any of those things that were signed off on years ago. We are engaged in not outright warfare perhaps, but I would call it experimentation with the weapons, experimentation, tacit agreements between nations, between elite classes in nations, that these things need to be really experimented with, perhaps over one's own country, perhaps not, perhaps just NATO countries, perhaps not. And then surveillance and neural operations, that's another one. We know about the surveillance. Edward Snowden told us, but I knew about it 10 or 15 years before him. And the surveillance is what the satellites were all about going up, but now we have surveillance everywhere because of the nanotechnology that I'm going to go into tonight. And the neural operations, that's of course mind control. That's control over thoughts, control over emotions. And that's a very big story. I have a lot to say on that. I could spend the whole evening on that alone. Simply that, you've turned your cell phones off. That's a good idea. I don't own one because I don't like carrying a government weapon around with me. And so the neural operations are that there will be pulsing frequencies through your phone thanks to the Internet of Things and we're completely surrounded by the infrastructure of the space fence, and they can use any of that energy and tap into any of that because the military always has more frequencies than you do, and they have yours too. So just beware of that. Beware if you suddenly have emotions and thoughts that aren't yours, that hey, I don't think this stuff, I don't feel this way. Then first place I'd look is your phone. Okay, biological transhumanism operations. Yes, that's probably what I'm going to talk about most tonight because I'm finally figuring out how transhumanism is going to be carried out. Then we have detection, obscuration of exotic propulsion technology. And that's a very fascinating topic. A lot of people think it's, aliens from Alpha Centauri or wherever. But I think most of it is our own exotic propulsion technology that we now have. And the many of the plasma clouds that are being produced in the sky through radar and particulate matter, especially the conductive metals, are actually hiding places for these. And, we have a whole host of people who are looking into that. So that just gives you, this is sort of my map. This is sort of my, okay, where does this belong? A lot of these overlap, a lot of what's going on overlaps. But this is pretty much what's going on, and I've definitely brought that out before. And just to remind you, this is sort of how it is here. Notice our troposphere where it is, way down here at the bottom. Little teeny weeny us on here, thinking that we're really something here. And then up here, the stratosphere, 50 kilometers up. And then here is the ozone layer. And then up to the mesosphere. And finally, way up here, ionosphere. Just to keep in mind what some of these terms I'm throwing out, just to show you what our magnetosphere kind of looks like. What's coming out of it, like all the hairy there, that's all Birkeland currents. That connects us with our sun. They're also called magnetic lines of force. Okay, let me stop there, and now I'm going to let you know the direction I'm going in. I'm a historian. I don't know how I ended up in this, but I'm a historian. And I've read a lot of history. I'm also a student of Rudolf Steiner, 35 years, 40 years. And I was a Waldorf teacher for years. I started 4 Waldorf schools in Washington State so children could have a childhood. And then I burned out. I burned out like the meteors they tell us that we're seeing in the sky. And then I thought, well, I'm going to return to writing because I had been a journalist before, and so I returned to writing, and here I am. What's going on? Let's write it in other language, just so our imaginations can get a little tweaked. We need our imagination. Not because we want to fantasize our way out of this predicament we're in, but because you cannot think great thoughts. You cannot see big pictures of what is being unfolded by very smart people secretly, unless you can imagine and imagine what they are foreseeing and what they want to make. And I have studied these global elites, especially the scientists, who are called the Jasons, by the way, the Jason group. You want to learn about them, that's who you want to study. The Jasons were founded in the 50s. This is the creme de la creme of all elite scientists. And what the Jasons want is a different Earth. And they want a different humanity. I was sitting at the airport today, and I was just looking at everyone. I mean, it's just unbelievable. There are billions of us here. Duh. Yes, but everybody's pursuing their own business. Everybody's pursuing some sort of understanding of why they're here. And everyone's on a different trajectory. And that's miraculous. It's, you know, and I just found myself grinning. People probably thought I was a crazy old lady. But I was just grinning because I love that. I really love that. In fact, I love that so much, I do not want them controlling our thoughts from the space fence and from our cell phones. We want our own thoughts, even if you want to be a couch potato the rest of your life. Even if you want to go and throw away your life on drugs. You know, I want you to have the right to do that. I really do. So okay, so I'm thinking about the elite, and I woke up the other morning, I was thinking about coming here and like beginning to get neurotic about how I'm going to approach it this time. And my head was completely filled with exactly what I needed to talk about and why. It's just amazing how a night's sleep, I don't know who's working on me in the night, but I'm very happy they are. And what I realized is I need to tell you about the macrocosm and the microcosm, about as above, so below. This is an esoteric law that all esotericists, whether you hate occultists or you are one, it doesn't matter. As above, so below is an alchemical secret. What? Go do this. It's an alchemical secret, and great. I have guides up here. So the alchemical secret is as above, so below. And what that means is, it is whatever they're doing, and do I believe they know this? Oh, yes, I do. They know it at NASA. They know it at NOAA. They know it at Lockheed Martin. They know it at Raytheon. They know it at General Dynamics. They know it at L3. They know it at SAIC. They know this. And they are building a world based on an alchemical dream that the Freemasons, the Knights of Malta, the Satanists, all brotherhoods that have ever lived on this earth and are still here, and they are still here, whether you think it's funny or not, they're still here and they're not funny to me. They want that dream. So they're working on the macrocosm right now. I'm going to show you that. And they have made some amazing breakthroughs into the microcosm. Breakthroughs that will be very dangerous for us down here, us little peons at the very bottom of the Schumann well here in the troposphere. So with that in mind, remember, I want you to remember these concepts: macrocosm, microcosm, and as above, so below. Right. So here, now we're just going to take a brief look at some clouds, because I know you love to look at clouds. And this is the one that Clifford looked at when he very famously said that these are not normal clouds. And I want you to start, some of you already are good at it, but I want the rest of you to get good at it too. The material of the clouds is shown to have density, form, and behavior unbecoming of water vapor. And it has all the appearances of being, at least in part, of a synthetic nature. This material and form of cloud has been observed on numerous occasions in Santa Fe, New Mexico, during the past years and a half of the spraying program, and has always been suspect because of the unusual textures observed. the patterns and texture referred to have frequently been described as cottage cheese or tortoiseshell in nature by some observers. A classical assumption would be altocumulus. So this was back in 2000. Let's just go forward and see. In case anyone smirks at the name chemtrail and thinks it's all tinfoil hat folks, ha ha ha. Sorry, that's an Air Force Academy term that we borrowed from them. Here, just to remind you what the sky looks like, there's blue, and then suddenly there's some jets, and then suddenly it's all obscure, okay? We all know that. Now let's look at some clouds that we're seeing today. These are very different from those of us who are older here. Remember, real clouds. And here's one that's, I kind of like I consider this what I call the laptop boys. They're kind of having some fun. They're in Colorado Springs. They've got these straight lines. They're playing around with the plasma. This is all plasma. And they can always make more by just heating up the area or running a few more trails with more gas and more chemicals and then heating that up. Now this is Sean Gautreaux. Sean is one of the people that's trying to see into the cloud to see if there are actually exotic propulsion vehicles in there. And here's an example. He's using infrared film along with regular film.
I can't see, sometimes you're covering up the screen.
I know. You're going to have to put up with me because this is not exactly perfect up here. You can move your chair. There's that. That. Now it's a cloud. Now it appears to be something else. UFO fleet or phased array radar. Here you begin to see the texture. This is chemical. I don't know what else you'd call it. This is not moisture and particles. It's chemicals. And the color looks like it's got some barium, maybe some lithium in it. Here's more shredding. That's chemical. I mean, we need to learn a new set of eyes, right, for looking at the sky. Again, shredding. So this technology, just to be clear, is scalar technology that they're using now. And I don't pretend to be an expert on scalar waves. I do recommend that for scalar studies, you go to Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bearden and Konstantin Mile, who is in Europe and is considered to be the next Tesla. You really don't want to miss out on him. He's just a regular guy, but he does amazing work. And he's built Tesla machines, scalar machines based on Tesla's work.
Is that going to be good for us?
It could be. It could be if it weren't weaponized.
It's good for Germany.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with scalar waves. It's what they're used for, and that's...
Works in a scalar wave.
Huh?
Our brain works in a scalar wave.
Yes. Think of scalar, it's a very interesting type of wave because it does not exist in space. It is circumventing space. It goes through the Earth, goes all the way through the Earth. It is in another parallel dimension is the way I think of it. And the only time you will ever see its outcome will be when they use what's called interferometry, which is two scalar waves coming together and crossing over the target area, and then you'll see 9/11, right? It will burst into, and it'll come out of nowhere. I mean, that's how the Santa Rosa fire was described. That wind came out of nowhere. That wind in Santa Rosa is in Dr. Wood's book, Where Did the Towers Go? That is a scalar wind. Once the scalar wave pops out into space, it makes this amazing wind that nobody can figure out where it came from. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that. So, this is Jim Lee's map. I highly recommend you go there. You can find out where every ionospheric heater and every radar installation and every NEXRAD and every wind tower. And I mean, Jim does a great job. He is a map man par excellence. Highly recommend that. Okay, now let's see if this will play. I always get a little nervous here. Oops. Oops. If anybody's smarter than me in this, come forward. I want to play the film, but I don't. I'm not on my computer, so I'm a little at sea here.
Alcyon, do you want to come and help?
But it has a question mark, which leads me to think it's not there. I just want it to play, and it looks entirely different than it should.
Robert, do you want to help, please?
I think it's not there because of the question mark.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, what that was, and still is somewhere, is a film by Lockheed Martin showing how a VLF, very, very low frequency balloon has surrounded the Earth right around the equator. And it's the only film I have which shows the Saturn ring that I keep talking about. And it is entirely there. And it is going to be used as the space fence lockdown. Because with that around the planet, now and then they've got the infrastructure on the Earth of all the radar installations and everything else, the cell towers, the Gwen towers, you name it. We are sandwiched between in this wireless cage. This is where we live, in the cage. We're locked in, we're plugged in, okay? Let's be under no illusion. Here we are. If you could see it, this is what it would look like. Waves are going through you all the time. If you're not turning your router off at night when you sleep, you should. And if you're not putting your head to the north, to the magnetic north, you should. And so really take this seriously. In a way, isn't this fantastic in an alchemical way that we now have to learn to peer into the invisible and understand its laws and understand what it's doing to us? This is very good for our consciousness development.
Yeah.
So let's not all be pouting and whining and crying about how hard it is now that we have oppressors. Let's look at the rosy side, is that we're going to learn a lot from this. We have to peer into the invisible. He who controls the electromagnetic spectrum on Earth controls the living things on the surface of the planet. That's Jack Cruz. He's on Facebook. He's one of the people that makes it worth my time being on Facebook. So here, the Ebner effect. I just want you to know it exists if you don't know about it. That electromagnetism can alter a species in one generation. So they might not be talking about a higher being, a complex being like a human being, but they might, if they have enough of an electromagnetic environment, which is what we have. This is, and with 5G coming, 5G is going to make a very big difference. So this is from Billy Hayes. Here it just gives you an idea of all the aluminum coming down, and I want you to see that there are 3 systems distributing aluminum. They're spraying it. There's a formula, and I want you to see how similar the formulas are. I told you the chemical signature is very similar. Here's the fracking wells. This is a signature that they're injecting into the wells. And here, down here, I don't have the sounding rocket one, but it's almost identical to this one. And the sounding rockets are using a lot of aluminum, but they're also doing lithium and a lot of other things. So concentrate on the chemical nature of this assault That's the key. This is alchemy. Alchemy is old chemistry. And now we are being chemically set up for electromagnetic transformation that they call transhumanism. All right? That's what all this is about. So we're not going to hear this one either. Well, I don't like that big question mark. I have all these very cool things I spent a lot of time on. Oh, well. So this, do I need to talk about this? No, I don't need to talk about this. Lithium sunset from a rocket launch. That's what the previous question mark was about. It was showing Elon Musk at his SpaceX, and they were launching a rocket that was spewing lithium behind it. So that's kind of what lithium would look like. I've talked before very briefly. I'll just let you know. Oregon, I had an activist contact me a couple years ago in 2015 about a whistleblower that told them that lithium was being sprayed along the Oregon coast to see what the effects on residents would be. Everybody was stoned. Everybody, you might think that's good, but they didn't like it. And they were sick. They were nauseous. They were depressed. And it was an experiment on the Oregon coast. Okay, this you'll see from sounding rocket launches. This is actually dusty plasma, it's called. It's one of the nanoparticles that we need to know about, and I go into it in a little further on. That's what it looks like. Okay, here's the rocket launch. Charged dust, dusty plasma. Particles may reach high altitudes and contribute to seed population for cloud seeding, basically. Occurrence has increased, okay. The ability of the HARP Space Lab rocket combination to deliver very large amounts of energy comparable to a nuclear bomb anywhere on Earth via laser and particle beams is frightening. That's Rosalie Bertell, the epidemiologist that wrote Planet Earth, the Latest Weapon of War, a critical study into the military and the environment. Very good book. This is Lockheed Martin. I played it last time I was in town, so those of you who heard it last time know how good it is. Clifford Carnicom and I feel that if you could just break that one film down by Lockheed Martin with cool music and showing how cool they are, and they have all this sewed up, this space fence locked down, sewed up, you would understand the entire space fence program. So it's very good.
And they're using those phrases?
No, that's me. This is on the radar S-band. Not going to be able to see this. It just shows how the radar works to create a Tesla dome over the area of attack. It'll create a plasma dome over someplace they want to assault. And then in come the ballistic missiles, or in come the particle beam weapons from space or whatever. So this Tesla dome is very crucial to understand how easy it is now for them to put it together and use it also as a defense system. It's used primarily as a defense by the military.
Are these videos that we're not able to see available anyplace else?
They're all on the net. Yeah, and I've given you the titles in the headers. And this is BP Earthwatch, another guy I recommend. I really like him. He's not totally on the same page I am, but that doesn't matter. He's got some really good insights. And here in this video, he talks about CERN and how the magnetosphere, the magnetopause, which surrounds the magnetosphere, is influenced by CERN. Now that's serious. Our magnetosphere is outside our ionosphere, 22,000 kilometers up. And it keeps us safe from solar events, CMEs, stuff like that. And the fact that CERN can influence that with its particle accelerator there on the border between France and Switzerland is a very big deal. And I highly recommend Anthony Patch to people for CERN. Anthony is a very real Christian, so you need to get used to that. But he really knows a lot about CERN, and he's a valuable person to me. This may look very arbitrary to you, but this is not an arbitrary map of the geomagnetic field on the Earth. Probably some of you in here have read about ley lines and things like that. This is the ley lines, and every place you see a node is a power spot, and most of our military installations around the world are on those nodes. Now tell me that's just circumstantial. So that was, sorry about that. That was made, this map was made by Bruce Cathie, C-A-T-H-I-E, a New Zealander who was a tremendous mathematician, harmonics mathematics. So I highly recommend him. These are the plasma. These are plasma tubes that are above the Earth. And if you were to look up one during a sunset, you would see this, because you would be looking straight up the tube. And now we're going to miss out on Geordie Rose's great speech about the D-wave computer, which is that when he stands beside a D-wave adiabatic computer, he feels like he's standing next to an altar to an alien god. And he's serious. He's not being metaphoric. So there's something going on with the D-wave computer. Google has one. Lockheed Martin has one. Everyone who's anyone has one except the U.S. Army. They've chosen something else. But the D-wave adiabatic is a thinking AI system that is probably, to my knowledge, the most advanced or the next most advanced on the Earth yet. Quantum computation will be the first technology that allows useful tasks to be performed in collaboration between parallel universes. Okay, that's by David Deutsch. Again, he's not being metaphorical. Let's get that straight. They have access to things that we only have nightmares about. And the D-wave at CERN is definitely probing parallel dimensions through antimatter. Okay, that was the macrocosm that is the space program is pursuing. Now let's do the microcosm, as above, so below. This is NBIC. I don't know if you've seen those initials. You'll see them again and again on the net if you're doing what I do. But it stands for Nanotech, Biotech, Infotech, and Cognotech. And this is the sort of map to full spectrum dominance of planet Earth. Meters, centimeters, millimeters, micrometers, nanometers, and there are more, but nanos will do. A nanometer, or nanometer, is 1/1 billionth of a meter. And they're making computers on those, each one. And they're making sensors out of each one. And they can even put NASA as an imprint on each one. Okay? This is the microcosm. And here's General Petraeus. Items of interest will be located, identified, monitored, and remotely controlled through technologies such as radio frequency identification, sensor networks, tiny embedded servers, and energy harvesters. That sounds rather ominous. Oops, sorry. all connected to the next generation internet using abundant, low-cost, and high-power computing. I guess that's what progress is. So now let's look at some of those tiny guys, those tiny machines that are in our lungs right now. And everybody in this room has them in their lungs, in their blood, in their brain. Let's get straight on that. We have breathed all this in. It was released in the stratosphere with the intention of it falling down here and turning each one of us into a petri dish. Okay. Okay, what is dusty plasma? Electrons plus ions. Plasma equals plasma. Small particle of solid matter absorbs electrons and ions, becomes negatively charged, and I don't know what Debbie shielding means, don't know. There it is, big blob, pink guy. Okay, this is kind of interesting in that, you know what tornadoes look like, right? Well, this is a tornado. This is a map of one using the possibility of the dusty plasma coming down, which can also be made on the Earth, to feed a tornado system. Here's one of the gems. There are gems, MEMS, and NEMS. I don't have the NEMS on here. Those are the nano-sized ones. These are the sensors that are picking up data up in the stratosphere, but they fall down to Earth and they're picking up data here, and they're picking up data in our bodies. They're very tiny. These are the quantum dots, another tiny guy that is in us, the quantum dots. The science behind luminescent tags is elegantly simple and shows how easily newly discovered properties at the nanoscale can be made practical. In a Q dot, the quantum dot is surrounded with a shell that protects it from its environment and amplifies its optical properties. The resulting structure can be attached to various different carriers to transport it to whatever it should tag. So this is definitely how they're tagging people, and I would assume that that some of us have these on our bodies. The smart dust nanotechnology. All this shows is how tiny it is and how strange they look under an electron microscope. They're so tiny you can't see them with a regular microscope, so you need an electron microscope. And they are so machine-like and creepy-looking, strange faces on them. You can find this video on the net, and I say here the video is 2 years old, but I can only imagine what they have now. So now let's talk about our food, as if I weren't just full of good news before now. Okay, so our Nano Foods. See, they don't have to list it as an ingredient. So it's in all the GMO food, for sure. And I assume it's probably on organic food grown under the sky. I would assume that. But anyway, it's in our nutraceuticals. That would be all of these wonderful pills people are taking to feel better. Minerals, vitamins, and things. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but this is why I do Whole Foods. And I pretty much only do Whole Foods.
Good luck.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at
You're
least,
selling canola oil.
yeah, I wouldn't.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I wouldn't use canola oil
Yeah.
myself. But anyway, you know what? We're on our own here, right? We're going to have to find the best we can. It's kind of like driving cars in a way. I mean, you'd rather not be driving a car, but you are. And you have to make compromises here for the duration of your visit here on planet Earth. So this is just more of the same. And you can find this on the net too, just to show that nanoparticles are in. They are big business because they're cheap and they're fillers. So when you have a pill, they need a filler to put the little goodies in that are supposed to make you better. The filler in your shampoo, that's what it's about. In anything, it's used as filler because it's very, very cheap to make. Okay, all genetically engineered. This is from, by the way, Tony Pantalaresco, whose name is hard to say, but I recommend him still because Tony is doing a lot of research into how to get the nanoparticles out of our bodies because we're breathing more in every day. And then, do I remember this? No. Okay, so there was a time when the biggest worry we had, or at least I had, because I'm in touch with lots of targeted individuals. I probably know 24 who are contacting me all the time for advice, and I think they originally thought I might be able to save them. That's ridiculous. I can't save, I'll be lucky if I can save myself for a few more years. So I at one time was thinking, yeah, the voice to skull, that's going to be the worst thing about the 5G. They're going to use that Internet of Things, and they're going to be able to talk right in our head. And we're not going to have our own thoughts and our own emotions. But I don't think this is the worst. I think there's something worse. And here it is. Thought-controlled nanoscale robots in a living host. That's us. Okay, that's us. So let's see what they say here. This just came out, by the way. We report a new type of brain-machine interface, that's BMI, or BCI, brain-computer interface, enabling a human operator to control nanometer-size robots, that's what we have in our brain and everything, inside a living animal, that's us, by brain activity. Recorded EEG patterns are recognized online by an algorithm, which in turn controls the state of an electromagnetic field. The field induces the local heating of billions of mechanically actuating DNA origami robots tethered to metal nanoparticles, leading to their reversible activation and subsequent exposure of a bioactive payload. Ooh, bioactive payload. As a proof of principle, we demonstrate activation of DNA robots to cause a cellular effect inside the insect Biabenus discordalis by a cognitively straining task. This technology enables the online switching of a bioactive molecule on and off in response to a subject's cognitive state, with potential implications into therapeutic control and disorder. Oh yeah, they want to help us. Oh, I feel so much better. I just want to help us get out of depression. Come on. Come on, we trust them. So there it is. So you see how I'm thinking of 5G now is what it's going to avail them of is we're surrounded by the Internet of Things in our homes, in our cars. You know, if you've got one of those new, a friend of mine bought a Tesla. She wanted to take me for a joyride so she could do 0 to 60 miles an hour in 3 seconds. And it was like, what is this, a midlife crisis at 70? I didn't want to go because I know how many computers are in that car, and I'm in a hot box. But you know, the ride only lasted 60 seconds or so because of the speed. So this is the worst. They'll be able to trigger the nanobots in us. You see how I'm thinking? Yeah. This is why the 5G is, we have to think about it really hard of how we're going to resist it. Okay. All right, and then this is not written very well, but I went ahead and used it. I want to correct a couple things. Okay, MATRA, aka magnet-assisted transfection, is the process of aerosol chemtrail dispersion and olfactory uptake of aluminum encapsulated nanoparticulates containing CERNA, weaponized RNA. Okay, this is another thing. So cyclotron resonance is what Robert Becker, Dr. Robert Becker wrote two fantastic books about how resonant we are. This is our problem. If they're pulsing your cell phone with a frequency that would make anger, it's an anger frequency, and then you start to get angry because of your resonance, not because you want to get angry, not because it's overpowering you, but because that frequency, your resonance picks up on that frequency and knows what it is and starts to communicate it to you, and you feel that. So if ever you have an emotion or a thought that you would not think or feel in that moment, there's no reason to be depressed today. There's no reason to be angry. Consider that it might be pulsing that's going on in your environment. You must add that to your repertoire of defense, because it will be used if it's not already. Let's see what that is. Okay, then cyclotron resonance or high power Wi-Fi microwave energy. It's making it sound like cyclotron resonance is this, and that's not right. Is the catalyst that opens ionic plasma cell wall membranes, permitting weaponized RNA to recombine with healthy DNA. Yes, we are talking about a genetic level of the 5G as well. We all know, I hope, that Jack Kruse, the neurosurgeon I quoted earlier, Jack says that it will hit our mitochondria for sure. So pregnant women are very at risk. And I think that it's going to go, this is how they're going to do the transhumanism, is they're going to change our DNA from the outside, because we now have the means in our bodies. I used to puzzle over it. How are they going to do that? How are they going to get any of us to go to a clinic? Or are they just going to wait for our kids and do something to them? Now I realize it's going to come from the outside. And then the last part here, cyclotron resonance can be used, I would say, to fracture healthy DNA, creating an ideal biological environment for spontaneous recombination. And recombination means changed, not the human being that was, something else. And then he says here, this is why you're sick. These are carbon-60, and is anyone taking carbon-60 here? Yeah. There's a big, I suppose you'd call it a debate on the internet as to whether it's good or bad. And Dr. Jack Kruse, I don't follow him slavishly, but I know he said that carbon-60, because of the size of the nanoscale of the carbon-60 tubes, these are all separate tubes, that it can be used to basically influence your consciousness. And I don't know any more than that, but that's all I know. It's like a buckyball or fullerene. And those are all terms that it would be good to at least learn a little about them. This is all nanotech, fullerenes, nanotubes. I'm going through several of the terms tonight. Nanotech, a gentle introduction to the next big idea. In a way, the Ratner guys are sort of selling it in 2003, but it's very informative. It's on the net. It's free. You can read it. It's easy to read. I took this from it. Nanoscientists draw on information from many disciplines. Chemists are generally concerned with molecules, and important molecules have characteristic sizes that can be measured exactly on the nanoscale. They are larger than atoms and smaller than microstructures. Physicists care about the properties of matter, and since properties of matter at the nanoscale are rapidly changing and often size-controlled, nanoscale physics is a very important contributor. Engineers are concerned with the understanding and utilization of nanoscale materials. Materials scientists and electrical, chemical, and mechanical engineers, they're all involved in this. Do you see how big this is for economics alone? And that, of course, is a big selling point to science. And that the military is the only one who has the purse strings that can pay the grant monies to universities to pursue what the military wants pursued. This is one of our biggest problems. Universities are basically military contractors now. They and their labs and all that high tuition, that's all just to make up for the fact that they've got these expensive labs and they're still not getting enough from the military. Okay, so all these guys are involved. The unique properties of nanostructures and with how special properties can be utilized in the manufacturing of entirely new materials, beware of that term, that could provide new capabilities, beware of that term, in medicine, industry, recreation, and the environment. Yeah, it's all a good thing. Ha, ha, ha. This is kind of cool. Oh, no, this isn't it. Anyway, it's cool too. But this is a nano-size CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. So how big is this really? Oh, you couldn't even see it. It's smaller than a grain of sand. And then this, 2 parallel nanowires. Now we're getting into Morgellons territory, because the Morgellons are fibers and they have nanowires in them.
Can I ask a question? Do they grow?
Yes.
Morgellons? Oh, yeah. Oh, well, what they do is they grow a network in your body. I mean, it's a fibrous network, and it's a communication network. Morgellons are transceivers. They are receiving information. They are receiving programming from random sources. The laptop boys come to mind. They break out, the people who are breaking out with the lesions may actually, that may be caused not by their own biology, but by a remote communication making the breakout happen. Yeah. Okay, this is lab on a chip. This one I think is really cool. I feel good I'm a lab on a chip. At first glance, these tiny automated laboratories look like their electronic brethren. They are usually created on silicon surfaces, and tiny cells are linked by microscopic or nanoscopic interconnects. I would assume we all have a lab on a chip or two in our bodies as well. Okay, this is done by Clifford Carnicom at Carnicom Institute. This is his map of how this might work. So you have the food and agriculture biosphere here. You have the environmental, air, water, soil, sunlight, electromagnetic, health, biology and pathology, and geoengineering here with a nice big connection to bioengineering. And then down here you've got all the ways they hide it. Now we're in Clifford's website, carnicominstitute.org. Here are primary symptoms of Morgellons. And please don't immediately start going through the list and thinking, oh, I have that one. Oh, but I don't have that one. Oh, but I have that one. You know, it's, we all have it. We all have it in our bodies. We have breathed it in. The GMO foods are also a delivery system. Vaccinations appear to be another delivery system. So we have 3 primary delivery systems. Can you wait with that question? Okay. Oh, thanks. Okay, oops, sorry. Okay, materials or substances emerging from the skin. Open and or slow healing lesions. Rashes or other skin conditions. Itchy scalp. Change in the quality of vision. Unusual and chronic ringing in the ears. That's tinnitus. Unusual dental conditions. Fatigue. Shortness of breath, persistent or excess mucus or sputum, stiffness in joints, constipation, bloating, unusual weight gain, anxiety, nervousness, irritability, headaches, dry eyes and mouth. You forget events, reliance on external memory aids, a loss of train of thought or flow of thread of conversations, difficulty diagnosing, identifying, or explaining the illness, skin problems, associated conditions diagnosed or examined. Lyme disease. Lyme disease is connected to the Morgellons, absolutely. Chronic fatigue, and herpes. All of these are connected because Morgellons really pulls on your energy. Here is what Clifford calls them environmental fibers. This is what they look like when they fall from the sky, when they're in the grass, wherever. Here he did an examination of heavy metal toxicity, and certain ones came up very heavy. Aluminum, barium, calcium, chromium, copper, iron, lead, magnesium, manganese, nickel, potassium. Sometimes I get the question, well, what do they make these nanoparticles out of? This is it. The periodic table of the conductive metals. That's what they make them out of. Okay, this is it looks really bad here, but this is a Morgellons at 1500 magnification, a sore. That's not very good, but it's a fiber. They really have some girth when you, 5,000. This is a leg with it on it. This actually might even be my leg. Because one summer, 2 summers ago, I was going to go visit Clifford, and suddenly I had this outbreak on my calves. And I believe it was remotely given to me so I'd have something for Clifford to do when I got there. I mean, I'm being funny, but I actually think that there was some, because it cleared up pretty much after I left Clifford. So I never did figure that out. Oh, that's better. That's too hard to read. What is that? Aerosols and Morgellons. And what's that word? Systems perspective, yeah. You can go to carnicominstitute.org and see all of these charts and photos. Clifford, this was a speech by Clifford. It also is at his website, Global Validation. I don't know if any of you have ever seen those fibers sort of floating around and ending up on the grass and ending up. I have them outside my window sometimes where I write. They're not spider webs. They're actually polymers that are a delivery system. And then here is my list that I recommend of sites that I like, that I find to be very valuable. I'm sure I've forgotten some, but I wanted to give you a few of the places that I go for information from some of my peers who are pursuing this with just as much intensity and passion as I am. And I think that's it. Let me just check. Yeah, that's it. And as far as, I'd like to do Q&A now. And I don't know that you'll need I don't think you need a microphone. We can hear you. Okay.
I need to intercede for a moment.
Yes.
Can we turn on the light for a moment, please?
Turn on the light, someone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for all being here. May I have a mic?
Oh, wait, she's going to give you this one.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. If you're my age or older, this is a Sunday evening, and when we were younger, much younger, we'd be watching Lassie or the Ed Sullivan Show. That's what he did Sunday morning throughout America. But you were willing, we're living in a different era. I really want to thank Elana so much for visiting us. We'll get more of an opportunity to applaud a little later also. But really what I want to say is that, this has been a grassroots effort. Elana works really on her own. And we here at Los Angeles Skywatch are a grassroots operation. We started 9 years ago at the Unurban Cafe Elana's, well, the book that came to our attention was under
Chemtrails are
Chemtrails under a full spectrum dominance of planet Earth. And that's a great book also. It comes before the one on ionic skies. But I want you to know there's just a few people, and particularly Jan and Paulette, who really, and Alcyone, who helped really pull this together from our group. And
Thank you.
And it will continue. We meet in the Unurban Cafe once a month, usually on the third Saturday. You will get an email of our next speaker. We've had Elana usually on every other month or once every 3 months by Skype, live. So you'll get a chance to ask Q&As there. But really it's an educational forum at the Unurban Cafe. It's on 33rd and Pico. And God bless Pam, who's given us that room, but we're paying for it as part of contribution. Why I'm here tonight is to ask you to help donate to our group and to Elana. She's being paid by you tonight. We're asking you for donations. She's getting a percentage as well as our LA Skywatch group, so that we can help educate the public of what really is going on. And you'll have a moment to hopefully reach in, take some money from it, and please put it into the box if you haven't done so. Make sure that you've written your email down on the rosters, because we want this to continue. We're so proud to see so many faces here tonight. Jan, Alcyone, and Paulette, thank you so much. 3 people helped bring this together. Barry, our webmaster at LA Skywatch, sending emails out to all of you so that you could be here. We've got other people sending it. This is word of mouth. We don't have a large advertising budget to deal with, but we've got it done. We're so good. It feels so good. How do you feel last night?
Yes, I love coming to California. Thank you.
Well, for a moment, please, we'll just take another couple more minutes. Pass the boxes around. Please donate, because as I say, do that, we're paying Elana. We help pay for her phone fare here. And we ask for some help from you on this.
I put in 20 already.
And for a few minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
going?
Pass it down. Hi, good to see you.
We have 2 boxes, Paulette?
Yes.
2 boxes. All right, let's try to cover the bases. And then we're going to go to Q&A, so please stay. This is going to even be better. We ask that you stay and really ask your question in a loud voice. We may not be able to hear you. He's the first one. Yeah. All right, we will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bob, why don't you take your question now or two?
Thank you. Yeah, actually, come back.
For buying books, can you use a credit card?
This one ran off.
No,
I don't have anything. You can write off the check, but you gotta check.
we can write her a check. I say we're a grassroots operation. We don't even have a credit card.
Yeah, it's 25 for this one. Yeah, 20 for the. Yes, this is the one. This one's good for the hurricanes. Yes, how much is the
No, I would stay in your seats. I would leave. I think the best part of the evening will come now. We're opening up the Q&A in about another 2 minutes.
If you sign up for the mail,
Please stay seated.
oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
This is better than the Ed Sullivan Show 50 years ago. Thank you all for your donations. Thank you so much.
Robert,
It's here, thank you.
I'm not Robert.
We're not ready to begin. Please find a seat. I will wait for the room to get more quiet so we're ready to begin Q&A. Please.
yes, the Q&A is really important because I can't cover everything and I really, there might be burning questions.
All right, comment is made is that we'll have many questions, but I would like you really to stay, ask a question. We really don't want to hear a lot of background. The focus is not on the question. Ask the question, let Elana reply to that. Otherwise, we'll have to ask, we just ask you to focus on the question. Thank you.
Cohedes first.
Okay. If you can, we have room.
If you speak
How
up,
loud he is.
Speak up.
I can speak louder.
Go ahead, Steve.
It won't be recorded.
I would like to know, you mentioned the creme de la creme, the elites. Do they have the nanoparticles and all these
can you
things in
come
their
up and
blood,
speak
their
up
body?
here with the mic?
Yeah, do they have I'll repeat the question. Do they have the antidote is what you're asking?
No, do they have that in their body and in their
Oh, yes.
bloodstream?
Oh, yes. Because we're all breathing the same atmosphere. But they would have the antidotes, and they would have the highest technology, such as a very wonderful HEPA filters for air and water, and they're building underground, and they probably have the vaccinations, and they probably have heavy metal detox instruments that we can only dream of. That would be my guess.
Is there a list of who these people are?
Is there a list of who these people are?
Very good. Probably so. I mean, I certainly know of some global elites, but I don't think the names are really important.
Elana, can you go into the whole mechanism of Morgellons? I mean, how is it acquired? What does it do inside of you? And what's the purpose of it? Is
How
it
is
something meant
Morgellons-
to extinguish people?
How is Morgellons acquired? How is it,
How's it develop in you? And what's the
Developed.
purpose?
and what is its purpose?
Didn't anybody hear me that
Yes,
time?
I would assume, and remember, Morgellons is what Clifford Carnicom has, he actually has the DNA of it. He has discovered on his own, with no help from the CDC or the EPA, the DNA signature of the Morgellons. But there are other pathogens that are coming down, I would assume. I have no proof. But that's what I would do if I were in the circumstance that I had a whole bunch of people breathing the same air and I was using the atmosphere as a delivery system. I would want other pathogens to be tested as well. But the Morgellons appears to be a fiber-forming pathogen. And when I say fiber, I'm not just talking about a little fiber here and a little fiber here and a little fiber here. I'm talking about a mesh. And if you heard Elon Musk talk about how we all would need a neural mesh in order to deal with artificial intelligence that was coming, even though he didn't want it to come, that is what I would say it does. Now, I saw on my own legs during that period I told you about when I visited Clifford, and we did scrapings from my leg and looked at it under a 5,000 power microscope, and we did see Morgellons fibers among all of my leg skin. In the skin were already forming a fibrous network. And when later my skin got better, and I didn't have the outbreak of the red roseola type rash that was going on with, by the way, I'll have to, I hope I don't gross anyone out, but I could pick out pieces of crystal that were coming out of my leg, because this is an electro-optical experiment. It is people with Morgellons who have a lesion. If they go near their cell phone or a toaster oven or anything electromagnetic, the fibers sticking their heads out, and I mean heads, there are heads, sticking their heads out go nuts because they love electromagnetic energy. And so they are, I would say that Morgellons, that part of the reason is to see what this pathogen will do in a host. It does eat iron. We know that because Clifford and I watched it, several people's blood under the microscope, and it was sucking the iron out of the erythrocytes, the red blood cells. So that's what it lives off of, and then it forms fibrous networks. I mean, some people are showing pictures on the internet which are just amazing because whole textures are showing up on their skin, just below their skin, that are actually looking like what are those called in electronics, the boards? Like a circuit board. Looks just like a circuit board. So what am I saying? Well, somebody is, in my opinion, somebody is programming the Morgellons to make different formats in our bodies. And that is electro-optical technology. And the fact that this pathogen, Clifford has renamed it the cross-domain bacteria, because it has parts of all three domains of life on Earth. It is not simply a machine. It's partially organic, it's partially inorganic. It was genetically engineered. There is no creature on Earth ever before that was this creature. So that's about all I can say right now. Chapter 8 of this book sort of tells what Clifford has discovered through years of painstaking research. And as far as what you can do to counter it and to make it so that it's not going to devour you from the inside or make whatever, I am constantly watching my acid-alkaline balance in my body. And I've been macrobiotic for 45 years. I'm doing yin-yang in my head, which is not a religion. It's about acid-alkaline. It's biochemistry. And I'm watching carefully to make sure that I don't run too acid.
So you're staying over 7?
What was that last word?
Yeah.
You don't run to what?
Too acid.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
pH balance, too acid.
Yeah, Elana, nice presentation as all. It's
Can you pass the microphone?
a nice presentation as always. Let's talk about the potential for solutions here. I'm really curious what people are doing, not the elite. It means to digest this crap in the system, emulsify it, and get it out of the system, or transmutate it into another form. Do you know of anybody at this stage of the game that is engaged in that? Because the fact is, if it's happening, it's happening. How do we deal with it? Maybe we can find a way to boost our immunity and become immune to this stuff.
Yes,
And
the
clean this
immune
crap out
system
of our
is very
system.
important. And the person that I recommend, and he's certainly not the only person, but he's the most vociferous and sometimes funny and sometimes kind of crude. I love him to death, is Tony Pantalaresco. And Tony is he's either, I can't figure out if he's Australian or Canadian, but I know he lives in Canada. And he is experimenting and having great success, this is so cool, with magnetic fields. Because between a certain type of alkalinizing bath and electrolyte, it's as though he's turning the bathtub into an electrolyte environment. And then you get in the tub, and the way he does that, by the way, is with 3 things. It's with, well, you can use vinegar too. You can use vinegar, you can use salt, you can use Epsom salts, and you can use borax.
What about baking soda?
Not strong enough. And borax, and it'll turn into an electrolyte, which basically means a sort of mildly electric bath. And then he's building these triangular magnetic fields. It's in a triangle, so it will hold the magnetic field in it, with magnets on, they're basically 3 cutting boards, as I recall. And then he glues on or uses Gorilla Tape to put on these magnets, about 12 per side. And then he covers the whole thing again with tape, and then he puts it all in plastic. And then you take this in the bath with you, in the electrolyte bath, and they just scurry out of you. I mean, I've seen films. They are coming out in mass. And you can only, because they're nano-sized, remember, you can't see them like, doing the crawl or anything. But you will, if you turn the bathroom light out and have a flashlight, and you look on the top of the water, they're coming out in droves. So it looks to be that between the electrolyte environment and the magnetic field, this is the key to getting them out. Because they are very magnetic. That's another thing that I wasn't real clear on here because of one of the films not showing. So
Well, one comment about that, you're talking about boron. Sodium tetraborate, 20-multine borax. You can buy it as a supplement. You can take it in a powder. It's exactly the same thing, but it is the same valence state as aluminum.
Yes.
And it is the single best chelating material for taking aluminum out of the body.
Chelation is the magic word. Thank you for that. And also the borax. There's another part of this story I haven't told you about, and is that on your skin there is actually a coating that you can't see, that you have been subjected to, that sometimes I can scrape my skin in certain areas, maybe after a bath or a shower, and I'll just kind of mildly scrape it, and I'll come up with this white, almost plastic substance. This is to lock in our pores to keep the petri dish contained. I mean, this is so well planned.
Chlorine seals the skin of the body. It
Chlorine
literally seals the skin of the body, that's correct. And it has an impact on thyroid function. If your skin can't breathe properly because you take a shower, you get a problem.
This is a doctor we're listening to here, folks. Right. Do you want to give him a mic, please?
I'm not a doctor. Don't insult me, please.
Lady, you said you saw this in films. Where can we see such films?
Well, on the internet, and I mean, I have a file. Of course, I have so many files. But you can find it if you do some careful searches. Which one are you thinking of?
Well, you mentioned the films coming out
of the bath.
Or the elements coming out in the bath.
Yeah. That would be at Tony Pantalaresco's site. And he's right on here. augmentinforce.com, Tony Pantalaresco. And you can email him and he will respond. He is very involved in this. Yes?
Thank you.
Thank you, Elana, for the wonderful presentation.
She needs a mic, I think.
Please pass.
The behavior of the Morgellons, and it also seems the era or the time that they're showing up seems to coincide quite a bit with the way ropeworms behave in our body. And I'm wondering if you have come across anyone who's been drawing connections on it too.
Yeah, I actually just did. Where did I see that?
No, yeah.
I'm going to have to remember.
The ropeworms live in the they take host in the digestive system. And they have a human DNA in them, and they're talked about as being associated with GMOs, or kind of coming as a result of us eating GMOs.
Yes, because GMOs are deadly for the digestive tract. I can't believe how many people coming to my talks are still eating GMOs. I just can't believe it, because it's cheaper, because organic's too expensive. Because organic is tainted as well. Well, that is true, but at least the organic is still from some sort of heirloom seed. That means it's from nature. It's from nature. It's not from a lab. Does everybody understand that GMO means it's from a lab? It was created. It is not natural. It is not from nature. Even if it grows in the earth, that doesn't matter. It is not natural. Do not eat them anymore because they produce these ropeworms and all sorts of digestive problems.
And I don't know how much information is out there linking the two, and I haven't run across it myself, but I have looked into the ropeworms quite extensively, the Morgellons labs. And one thing I'll just contribute about the ropeworms is that they'll grow in their length and their size. And this is in my experience, in my studies, it seems that they are partially a reaction, the body's own reaction to these things that are coming in. And like the Morgellons, they will eat the iron in your body and they eat heavy metals. So if we have an excess of heavy metals, the ropeworms, to a certain extent, it seems, it appears, are helpful in that they're pulling out the heavy metals from our body. However, if they are not expelled, then they grow and they form, like the Morgellons, kind of a network, but it starts through the digestive system. It kind of works out maybe through the lymph system. I mean, nobody really knows. The Russians have done a lot of research on it, and it's one of those questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good connection. Yes?
See, I wondered about the C60, and you did bring that up, but I believe Tony Commercial, whatever his name is.
Oh, he's totally opposed to it.
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah, he's the one who told me again and again and again and again that they are using it, the C60, to influence your consciousness. I don't know more than that. Yes?
Thank you for your talk. Besides what you mentioned, you talked about the doctor, on the positive side, what can we do as a whole, those of us who seem to be more conscious and aware? What can be done? We know that the G5 is set, they're coming, and what on the positive note, what can be done?
Well, again, you know what I'm going to say, really. I mean, you've got to learn about this technology. You've got to be able to at least talk about it to people. Not that your friends are going to be dying to hear from you. We all know that. But you have to learn how the technology works for your consciousness. I mean, I don't know how you all think of consciousness. I don't think of consciousness as meditation. I don't think of it as study. I don't think of it as intellectual thinking. I think of it as holding a common thread of understanding of something that then operates as a whole. And this is, again, part of my, why I do what I do. Because I do believe that this can be swayed, but it has to be swayed by people who really understand how front and center this is. I don't know of another issue, I'm sure you've heard this from other people, but I don't know of another issue that is all about the entire planetary atmosphere. I don't know another issue that is about our blood and our brains and our future of our children and grandchildren. This seems to be it. And the deeper I go into it, the more I understand, yes, how daunting it is for us, because this is planetary. This is not influencing one area of cloud seeding over, or just California in drought. This is global. And as far as what to do, first, educate yourself. Second, get together with like-minded people. And you can do street action. LA Skywatch is available. And then from there, really, really look at your lifestyle and make some hard decisions about keeping your immune system strong. Because without a strong immune system, if you're all hung up on doctors and medicines, and you're not going to be of any use to activism. So you've got to invest in yourself and keep that immune system really strong. That's why I've been macrobiotic all these years. I'm not religiously macrobiotic, but well, yeah, I eat brown rice every day and miso soup. I guess that's pretty religious. But I, you know, I have a glass of wine now and then. I have some fun with friends. I eat with friends. I don't turn my nose up at things. You know, it's lifestyle. I don't own a cell phone. I really don't want that thing near me. I have a landline. I have a computer though, so I'm radiated. And you know, you just make the decisions you make in order to keep track of your immune system. Basically, that's it.
Thinking, attitude, thought.
Yeah. Yeah, and eating. It's how you eat. It's how you eat. If you're still eating packaged food, you better think about that. Because there's a lot of nanos in it, and there's, yeah, it can't be trusted. Yes?
Is NATO behind the global distribution of this?
NATO is certainly involved in it because you can look at the history of chemtrails themselves and see that we were primarily working with experimenting over NATO countries initially. And at one point I thought it was just a NATO operation. But then I began to see chemtrails over China, India, all sorts of places, and realized that either they were experimenting in order to be able to defend themselves from the weather warfare that we're subjecting everyone to now for political reasons, or it was us doing it and sort of sneaking through their atmosphere. I never figured that out. But
JFK
NATO's in on
was
it.
on the floor of the UN in 1962.
Well, don't get me started on JFK. That's one of my big heroes. Yeah.
Columbia speech.
Yeah.
Everybody should know.
Yeah, everybody should. I have to get this lady first, and then we'll get
One thing I want to say, when it comes to organic food, they pay $1,000 a year to get that little sticker that goes on their fruit or their vegetable. So you need to, if you can, go to a local farmer's market and connect with the people to be certain, because just because you go to the store, you can go to any one of the stores, it doesn't matter, and I don't even go in Whole Foods anymore because they're
not Whole Foods.
Monsanto.
No, they're complicit.
You need to make a connection there.
So did everybody hear it? You make a local connection. You make a local connection for your food if you can, because even going into a store, one, you're not really going to know, and you know, some of these growers have to pay $1,000 a year to be organic certified, and they're not going to do that if they've got a family to feed and stuff. So make a local connection so you know what the food is. Yeah.
Also, there is a man, I went to see him. And
excuse me, I'm going to interrupt because we have many quick questions. We have to have a question, please. You're asking me
I'm going to say someone that they can contact to get some help. He used to be a medical doctor, Scott Warner, in St. George, Utah, and he can help you. I've been to see him.
Okay, what?
Please, as I say, because we have many people who want questions. Address your question most of all. That's what we're
Okay, yes.
Can we use that microphone?
Microphone.
Yes, it's right there.
Go ahead, sir. I want to say thank you for your time.
We have a lady here, right here.
We've been waiting so long.
Okay. You're next. Promise.
In light of recent events, could you describe what you know about the solar simulator? And there's 7 different companies on the planet that have patents. As of Friday, the FBI shut down the National Solar Observatory and just kind of came in, and to end it all on a positive note, the sun's giving us this DNA enhancing energy, and I'm up to the point to where I think that's what's really happening, so thank you for being here.
So the question is, do I know something about the solar simulator?
Yeah, anything what happened on Friday as to why that was shut down in New Mexico.
Yeah, the solar lab, or the solar observatory in New Mexico, I don't know what I always wait for the other shoe to drop, I say. I sometimes have to wait a few weeks in order to, you know, get through all the rumors. But for the solar simulator, I think anytime you see angles on the sun, on the outer perimeter of the sun, or you see hexagonal patterns in the sun, you are looking at a solar simulator. And they do exist. They have been up there. There are many good pictures on the internet of the solar simulator. What is the purpose? Well, It's sort of like solar panels. I mean, they're collecting energy. They're actually doing, I didn't cover it tonight because can't cover everything, but they're doing a lot of experiments on plasma in order to turn plasma into a fuel and in order to produce life themselves out of plasma. So that's about all I know about the solar simulator. That's about it. Yes?
So I want to turn myself into Superwoman, and I'm wondering if I keep my DNA over 7 and I do whatever, I don't know what the formula is.
You mean your pH?
Yeah, my pH, and I do the formula, I don't know what the borax formula is. Am I then not, are all the Morgellons then being gone from me?
Morgellons? Oh, I can't, no, this is an ongoing treatment.
But I'm saying if I do that continuously.
Well, I don't know about your body. Every body is different. I don't know what phase your immune system is in. But am I clear about the immune system? One of the problems with this is, and somebody asked me what Morgellons is, this is very important. Because it's all 3 kingdoms, our immune system does not recognize it. It cannot defend us against this genetically engineered creature. And so that's kind of what they're looking at, and I feel that in order to do the transhumanist transformations that they want to do to human beings, that undermining the immune system is #1 for them in order to understand what gets around the immune system. And I feel that's part of the experiment that's going on.
Well, last question is, I'm drowning in mucus most of the time. Is there a remedy for that?
Yeah, go off dairy, first of all.
I have for years.
Okay, no dairy.
No dairy, I haven't.
Done.
Don't do that.
All right, and it seemed to me in Clifford's list that the production of mucus is one of the symptoms of the Morgellons moving. So I would try the baths. I would go to Tony Pantalaresco's site and start checking him out because he's entertaining and he's a terrific guy.
Thank you.
N-acetylcysteine. NAC is
radio shows that
NAC to take that mucus out of your lungs in an effervescent form from Germany. Really works.
I hear a lot. Yeah, I know. And who's
For
next?
people that don't know, hi, aloha, thank you for
Hi.
being. Why don't you stand up? Awesome. So I'm okay, I'm good.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. For the wine saliva test, can you tell everybody really quickly how to do that?
All right, so it's on the net. It's called the red wine test. You can find it. You clean your mouth really well, brush your teeth, floss, rinse your mouth out, get all the debris out, and then take a swig of wine, don't swallow it, and slosh it in your mouth for 3 to 5 minutes, and then spit it into a nice, sterile, clean dish or jar, and then take a look. And
a microscope?
No, just take a look.
What specific wine?
My guess is you'll see fibers moving on their own.
Red wine.
What kind of red wine, Elena?
Just red.
Any red wine.
You can use grape juice too.
Most of them are not
If you're a
organic.
teetotaler, use grape juice.
Welch's grape juice?
No.
Are you being funny? Yeah.
Just where are they making these nano things? Is that on Silicon Valley?
Where are they making
Where are they
them?
making them?
There are about 24 sites that have nanotechnology in their names. You can find them on the web. As far as I know, those are the only ones I know of. But if you check the Dow and look at who's investing in what, nanotechnology is off the charts.
But it's all U.S.?
Oh no, they're making it in Europe as well. I don't know about other nations.
Probably China and Japan.
Yes.
Every country.
Every country with no solicitation.
Part of the fundamental transformation.
Louder voice.
I was struck earlier when you were talking about the nanotechnology and the semiconductors in the body and how they communicate and how they emit information and then they receive information. And in that moment, I can't help but think, doesn't our DNA do exactly the same thing? Our DNA communes with the field. You can call it the consciousness field, Sheldrake will call it the morphogenetic field, but it puts out information and it receives information. And if we're in tune with that consciousness field, isn't there a way beyond simply looking at the physical body to move forward in this way to not just protect ourselves physically, but also at a mental, emotional?
No, a very, very good point. Very good point. And I absolutely agree. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is how they communicate, is as a swarm. And the difference between that and our DNA is that our DNA is more like an antenna. Yes, it is a transceiver, but it is an antenna, and this is the problem. This is what they've been searching for, is a way to influence our DNA through electro-optic technologies. And the Morgellons, to me, seems to be one of those technologies on the way to doing that. But you're right, consciousness has not even been tapped. See, and that's why I have not given up on it. But what do we mean by consciousness? We live in the West, which has taught us to be materialists. And we don't know much about consciousness. We don't know. We know that it's a morphogenetic field. I love Rupert Sheldrake. He's my guy. And I also am. I don't have it to show you, but I've read an amazing book about subtle bodies, the subtle bodies in our regular body, and how they can be translated into physics, and the plasma bodies that we have. So. Yes, let's get busy. I mean, this is it. You now know what, at least what I think is going on. And if you read the book, you'll know even more. And then you start experimenting and get in touch with people on the internet who are experimenting, because the internet is very imperfect, but it is the only town square we have now, really, on an international level. Yes?
And speaking of the internet, thanks for communicating with me as I was trying to get the flyer around. Who is coordinating the strategies for getting this information out in an effective way internationally? Because we're in the hub of the entertainment business.
Yes.
Some of us have worked on all sides of the microphones and lights and cameras, and have worked around advertising for our whole lives. And if our strategies were coordinated, we could effectively get this information out to people who are seeking information without sounding crazy. So who's coordinating that? I'd love to know. And thank you for adeptly communicating with people like Jim Lee and others that you've been connecting with and in your interviews with. You're being really graceful and differential and collaborative with others in your field. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing
Well, serious question. Who's coordinating all that potential?
Maybe that
Anyone?
people could get together after to talk about that or think about it.
I have a site, Stop Chemtrails Now. .com.
Great.
I also run Project Peace on Earth if you want to know a corrective strategy to shift morphogenetic field.
Thank you. Are there any other questions now? Okay, we're going to do it by order, so does anyone, let's see if I can see. Okay, this lady who has not asked a question so far. Okay, this lady in blonde, right here. And who would be next? All right, and then this gentleman right here. Here and here. Okay.
First of all, Elana, it's such a blessing to have you here and have you speaking, and God bless you so much for your work you've done. I've never seen, began reading your books the other day, and it's truly staggering, the incredible research you've done, so I just want to really, say that. Yeah, so my question really is, do you think that there's any way of stopping this? Like if our government officials, get aware, what about the central bankers, like stopping that? Does it come down to that, or just there's no way to stop it at all? What are your, any thoughts about stopping it? Or?
If Americans had awakened back 40 years ago when I was beating the bushes then, to wake up, this bad stuff is coming, come on, maybe, but I doubt it. This is a technological era, And the problem is we have a media that has lied to us about it and has entertained us to death, as Neil Postman put it in his fantastic book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. This cannot be stopped now, but by us. But if we do things, if we change ourselves and we raise our consciousness and we make commitments to a lifestyle that does not support certain things and supports other things, who knows what will happen? That I know. I started 4 Waldorf schools years ago in Washington State, and I always said all I did was beat the bushes. I just kept going and going and going and going, and boom, schools, boom, up they go. Here come the parents. Here comes the check for $100,000. You know, you never know until you have that kind of commitment, and that's the kind of commitment that I'm hoping that people can have. There is no hopelessness in me. I am stronger the more I know about this. And, yes, that's how it works.
This gentleman, would you bring the mic to?
Yes, thanks a lot for your...
After just a minute, is there anyone else who wants to ask a question?
Right here.
Who has not asked before?
She's gonna go next.
This lady right here?
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously this is it's a worldwide problem, and you cannot go to any political leader, any media station, they won't even touch this subject. So obviously, it's a people issue. My thought was this: there are hundreds of sites, people like yourself and others that are trying to educate the people. Why not somehow all these people worldwide get together and form one giant site, not of hundreds of thousands, of millions, hundreds of millions of people that can donate money. Now there'd be billions of dollars to support the operation, and now it'll be impossible to hide it with every effort to make. Because obviously, the group that's behind this, and I don't know how many people are involved, the biggest fear they have is our ignorance. And they're doing everything in their power to make sure we don't know about this. I've contacted the FAA, I put questions to them that I've known the answer and saw how they lied. I contacted NOAA, knowing the answers to the questions, and saw what they're doing. So we can't go to anybody.
No.
Politicians, they're nothing more than political puppets that are in there for nothing more than a pension. And they know they can't touch this. It's not a good career decision. So really, it's a people issue, and the question is, what is better methods than we might be doing to get people to wake up and get behind this?
Yes, I agree. My problem is that Americans in general have been over-mediated, and there are so many issues. What they've done is they've appealed to our feelings for the poor children at the border, the poor people send blankets after we allow our government to go and attack and blow the hell out of some country. We have been so weakened by being over-mediated, over-issued, that we don't have any way to contextualize what is more important than something else. And this is what I run into all the time. It isn't that people are bad people. It's that they, well, number one, they feel helpless. And they're waiting for another Martin Luther King or someone to lead them out of the desert here. And I'm not going to be that person because I'm dancing as fast as I can just to figure this out. And all I'm doing is, I'm the voice that is saying, okay, this is how it looks like the big picture is working. This is really important. Please, everybody, think of your skills, and obviously you have a skill of being able to look at the bigger picture of organizing and bringing people together. I think the biggest thing is, if you're thinking the internet is going to do it, I don't think so now. I've been on Facebook now for 6 years, pounding away at people, and I have seen tremendous growth. I'm not saying that. We have thousands and thousands of members now, and they all are pretty smart. They've got it down. They know a lot of things. But it's the medium. It's like Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message, and the medium is faulty. And it produces a sort of knowing is enough. Knowing is enough. And knowing isn't enough. It has to be an action. And so what I'm saying, you heard me say, All I can think of, just from my vantage point, is I don't, you know, I organized 4 schools. I don't want to do that again. Been there, done that. I don't want to be. I'm a recovering leader, is what I am. And now I'm now writing books, and so that, you know, those who have that kind of energy can take those books and learn some things, and then organize people, because that is a real skill to organize people. But I do not, I can't see that it'll work on the internet, because it seems like it sort of just takes our energy. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Not yet, hold on, Kathy.
Yes, someone here if you're finished with
All right.
that.
We have the next person.
Thank you so much. Are you familiar with like cryptocurrency and the blockchain and smart contracts and people, it seems like a lot of young people want to decentralize from governments, and you know, that seems very hopeful to me. So I don't know if you've looked into that.
For a movement, you mean?
Yeah, just for decentralizing from governments and, you know,
Facebook,
trying to, well, yeah, trying to form a new Facebook, just different things so that it's, your privacy is protected, your money's protected, you're not going through central banks, you're not relying on the system that's in place right now.
Oh, believe me, you're not saying anything that I don't know about. No, I am not pursuing those things. What I've noticed, you know, one of my advisors is Catherine Austin Fitz. She's a great investment analyst, and she thinks my book is one of the 10 best books of the year. So she's selling my book like hotcakes, because she wants people to wake up to this geoengineering thing. But Catherine has said that the big money is moving in on the cryptocurrency as fast as it can. And I'm just not really good at the mechanical, you know, I'm better with the concepts and pulling things together. So, but I think that's a great idea. And if someone's really smart about that stuff, that might be something to pursue and see where it can go. Yeah. Yeah.
But it is complicated.
Yes.
I think it's going to get easier over time.
Yeah.
But there's a battle going on right now.
Oh, yeah. Especially
in the U.S.
Yes.
We have a question.
No, I had a question because I spoke to Elena, and there is things that, you know, solutions. The solution is that, I'm talking about a solution now, because people are looking, what can we do? The solution is, I have a device that's called the 3-foot dual. It was developed by Trevor James Constable.
Yes, Trevor.
Yes, he took it on a plane. He was a merchant marine. You can find that on the internet. And I'm connected with the man, Harry Rhodes, is in England. And we mapped that Florence storm as a team. It went from a 4 down to a 2. You could look that up.
This is Wilhelm Reich technology she's involved in.
Yes, and yeah, the question is, how many of you would be willing to do something like that, to get involved and be a part of our deployment teams? We have it in Southern California. We have about 5 or 6 people here on the team. I'm one of them. There's one in Ventura, a guy, and one lady who's a holistic doctor. She's in Huntington Beach. You know, I wanted people, if you want to connect with me through my, not email, through my phone.
Or speak to her after.
Speak to me afterwards. This is a secretive operation that we don't want the government to know about yet. Because if they would know, they would come and shut us down. It's something that we need to know. In fact, Elena has a 10-inch that was bought by Sean Gardner, and he's in San Jose. There's more people in Northern California than we have here.
It's a translator, and Sean gave it to me. And if you want to know about Reich technology and what I think of it, I mean, it is extraordinary. And I have a cloudbuster outside my sleep window. Go read chapter 2 of my book. I talk about ether. This is about ether and how it was banned from scientific use in the time of Einstein because they did not want us knowing about ether. It's what they call dark matter now. And this technology works, but only on a local level.
No, it's not local. We could we could deploy anywhere in the world.
If you have a big enough cloud buster.
That's right. I mean, there's like a 3-foot dual or a 6-foot one. I have one of the 3-foot.
Orgone.
Yeah.
Orgone is another word
With
for it
water.
either.
Water is a source.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Who's next?
Yeah. Another question from anyone?
There's that over there.
I have an observation. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Look at this room, you've got 100 people. This should be in an auditorium with 10,000 people discussing this issue. So I suggest the biggest issue is awareness. And people correlate this conversation with people wearing aluminum foil and wearing bottle caps in their head. So what I suggest you do, get a gas mask, a literal war gas mask, point at the sky, and take a picture of yourself. And that way, you know, people are going to go, no, what are they pointing at? And you're going to get more and more people to look at this conversation.
Okay, who's next?
You're not even
This gentleman back there.
I noticed in this room that the average age is
7.
Go ahead.
I guess what I'm trying to say is the people that change the world are the youth, and how do we engage with the average age in this room? Everyone here, it's almost like preaching to the choir. How do we reach people who really can affect a change over the next decade?
Can I respond?
Cell phones away.
Can I respond? Thank you for that. We have one person in our movement named Matt Landman, and Matt is quite young, and he very much is reaching out to universities. He's given 3 conferences so far in Portland, Vancouver, BC, and Tucson, all at universities. And he very much feels the same way you do. He's trying to attract youth. Good point.
All right, anyone else? Another question? Okay, Kelly, Shelley, and anyone after Shelley?
All the people that have been involved.
You need the...
Not now, wait, Shelley's turn.
Am I on?
Go ahead.
A number of people have talked about trying to organize to spread out information. I'm active with a little paper called Changelings, but why not? I know you mentioned there's too much out there, but there's some people who are really aware and willing to organize. They seem to have, I think, the internet and an organization, call it whatever you will, but so grab the groups together. Respond one more time on that.
Let's do it.
Okay, we have Shelley, did you have a question? Yeah, I do. And then this gentleman, anyone else?
Bob, back here.
It's coming, it's coming.
Oh, we want some any new questions?
Of all the scientists that have been telling everybody about it, and a lot of them have been murdered and disabled and gone, have you had touch like that, and how do you...
Yes, I've been hit. I've been hit with directed energy weapons. And I've only been hit a few times, and I perceive it to be because of, they want to remind me that they're still there. And it wasn't to kill me or anything like that. Once they took my vision out, I was blind, and I waited half an hour, and they returned my vision to me. I mean, I'm under no illusion. We just had a major activist hit with directed energy weapons who now will probably never be the same. And so I'm very aware this is a war, and I'm very aware that I'm at risk. But I do believe that these people who do this, I've experienced them now for 20 years, they send messages ahead of time. And if you know how to read the message and not just get into fear, but you kind of hunker down and you know it's a message, and then you adjust your style, they will move on. I mean, I'm very aware that I have handlers. That just goes with the territory. I mean, that's America today. That's how things are here. If you don't know that, you'd better wake up and smell the coffee. There are probably 1.5 million people in this country who are being tortured in their homes and their offices as targeted individuals by directed energy weapons. And that's a whole other subject. I am not in fear because I have an inner life and I died when I was 22 in a wave at Makapu on Oahu. And I came back, and I was kind of depressed. I came back because it looked pretty good over there. I'm not afraid. I would like to hang around and finish another book. So I go between talking to God and talking to the CIA in my head. Just kind of making appeals. You know, come on, guys. Just
Good
one more
title for
book.
your next book.
Yeah.
And the other question is, solar panels that are made out of the plasma that are on top of our roofs and going into our bedrooms, is that affecting us?
Yes, solar panels also are calibrated, and they pulse. And the calibration, they recalibrate and they recalibrate. They have an AI now that can do that. And they want it all to operate as one, so that if they need to get into a neighborhood or into a particular office building or whatever it is, everything's ready. The Internet of Things, the 60 hertz in the wall, the cell towers nearby. This is very well thought out for full spectrum dominance. This is what they meant.
Anyone else? All right. Steve?
Elena, you said that you're aware that you have black op handlers for what you know and do. And you also mentioned that you aren't aware of what's feeding you this information during the night while you sleep.
Oh yeah, it's not them.
Right. Which means, are you entertaining the possibility of transdimensional entities that may actually help us on our side, and that there is maybe a spiritual or transdimensional struggle going on?
Yeah, I mean, I can see how someone might think that. For me, with my inner life, I'm pretty sure, and I'm a Rudolf Steiner person, pretty sure it isn't transdimensional beings. However, I could easily see that. I think we all have to make a discernment as to where things are coming from. Even my telling you about the CIA taking out my vision, or whoever it was. I mean, you know, the ray came in here, suddenly I'm blind, you know, so I knew what was going on. I don't know who did that. But I know it was to prevent me from editing something that I was editing then, and I know what the message meant. So that was my discernment. Someone else might have looked at it and thought something else. I mean, you can only make your own discernment. That's the cool thing about being on the earth. Is you are making your discernments. This is your school. This is your life. This is your lesson. And you know, God help you if you make the wrong discernment.
On your latest book, on the cover, it says space fence lockdown. What do you mean by that?
It's how we're plugged in. We have these nanobots in us, and these all these heavy metals that are conductive. We're now almost like a cell tower. In fact, we are like a cell tower. We are transceivers, and they can get in there, and they've built an apparatus around us with all the cell towers and the Gwen towers and the NexRads and your cell phone and the Internet of Things and the 60 hertz in the wall and the fiber optics running down your streets. And this is all one system that's being calibrated to be workable if they decide that they need to turn it into a directed energy weapon. That is space fence lockdown.
One follow-up. Your flyer was promoted on KPFK on the schedule. I was wondering how you did that, and if you contacted people at Pacifica.
I didn't do it.
Yes.
You did that, Paulette?
Yes.
Okay. Have you talked to Pacifica about, it's an avenue where she could get some exposure in 5 major cities?
I contacted Frank Dorrell, and
Frank Dorrell?
yes,
Who wrote the book Addicted to War?
yes,
Okay.
he's influential with KPFK, and he communicated with them, and they announced it on the radio also.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm on the board, so I'd be able to help too.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
There's several other contacts at KPFK, and I think it's important that you try to contact the individual
Programmers?
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried that.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question? We have a question right here.
Thanks for your great work.
Go loud.
Thanks for your great work. Do you go to an alternative search engine than Google that you find good information?
Well, now I'm in touch with so many people now that I'm like 2,000 emails behind. I can't keep up now, but I have some people who send me great stuff, and I just I go from there. I really am a believer that life sends what you need, and I have found that to be always true in my life.
Okay, we have a question.
People must push back on the 5G in their with their city councils and try to get them aware.
Put the mic in your mouth, please.
People must push back on the 5G coming to your neighborhood to a light pole by your bedroom window, maybe.
What's the problem with 5G?
That's
it's a huge problem.
Try to disconnect from your wireless as much as you can. And there's look up My Street, My Choice. Paul McGavin up north has done a lot of good pushing back on city councils and stopping some of this.
Some of it, but it's dicey, and I highly recommend if you choose that path to go to a city council, that you look at their relationship with anything that has the word sustainable development in it, because that is UN and that is Agenda 21 or 2040, and that is the direction that that they have chosen to go in, and you might reconsider your energy output. And as far as when it comes out, I mean, I have never seen such amazing press as 5G has gotten, and it has made me suspicious that the 5G is already here. I have heard this from a few people that it's in the 4G phones. It's already here, and that the antennas are so small, they're not those refrigerator things or those cylinders on top of the phone poles. They're already out there. So I'm watching my neighborhood, which is a very old neighborhood and a very broken down neighborhood full of old people who are, the aid car is coming every other week. I'm watching to see if there's any guys. As soon as I see a phone truck outside, I'm outside. I'm like the pest. And I want to know, and I'm writing down his license plate and I'm asking for his name, and I'm not going to do anything with it, but I just want them to know that I know telecom providers, you may think of them as just your cell phone providers. They're military contractors. They are subject to military specs. They have no choice. And that's their biggest contracts is the military. Every piece of equipment you dearly love and think is safe and will help you in an emergency and is your convenience and your entertainment, every single one of those came from the military. Do you remember? They all came, the television came from the military, the phone came from the military, everything. You think they gave that to us because they love us in the kindness of their hearts? I don't think so. So now they've weaponized them because they've found a way to ionize the sky. This is what it's all about. The ionizing of the sky is why all this electromagnetic stuff is going to lock us down and in place. We are all plugged in because we've got the devices in us as well. Okay? That's our condition, and then we go from there. Yeah.
I was just recently someone that works with the Beamer machines and the Wright machines and the quantum different machines that are out there, and she has a client that just told her that 6G is already coming. What do you know about 6G?
It's the same thing. I mean, even 5G is not the next up 4G. It's millimeter waves. 6G is going to be more millimeter waves. You already, I went through TSA today, right? I didn't go through that terrible machine because I did once and I almost fainted. And I'm tough, so I was impressed. I thought, wow, that really works. And I'm not going to do that again. But the millimeter wave will be from here on out. Yeah, and that's DNA. Adjustment.
I just was. I read some articles on the fact that if you go on a metro train in LA, they now have scanners. They scan everyone as they go through.
Yeah.
They say that it's more like thermography. But do you know what kind of waves?
That would be millimeter waves if it's like tomography, yeah. And my guess is it would be in the doors. No?
It's as you're coming down the escalators.
Oh, they've got
That's where
it
they're
off the
getting-
trains?
What, like, if you're coming from the station down the elevators to get your tickets or
Okay,
whatever?
yeah, I would think everything's about scanning. It's a surveillance state. Yeah, it's everywhere. There is no privacy. So say hi to them when you're on the toilet. Yeah, see next, Bob?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on, let me
Here
get
goes the mic.
10 seconds.
You're working hard there.
Relative to 5G, Palm Beach, Florida has been exempted and the mayor has announced it. You understand that President Trump's big estate is there. I'm writing to President Trump and I'm asking everybody to write to him to say, look, if it's good for you to be exempt in your neighborhood, I'm in Hollywood and it's good for me to be exempt in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And if enough of us, you laugh if you want, but if enough people write to this man and say, we know you're exempt, don't shake your head no.
He has nothing to do with it.
Because
President
of
has
the
nothing to do with it.
2003 war with Iraq, we had millions of people protesting around the world.
I was one of them and I was arrested and I'm one of the Hollywood 9.
Okay.
You're talking to the left.
And what it,
Yes, excuse me, we want to stay focused on the question. Do you have a question, my dear? Do you have a question to?
Just a comment. No, she was just telling us about
Okay,
Florida.
would you have a comment on that? Let's keep the focus on Elana, no crosstalk.
I have a question actually for you, Elana.
Huh?
And I think I've earned it. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, yes.
I recently listened to another Veritas radio show, which is where I heard about you. And Max Eigen was talking on there from Australia. Most of you know him.
Who was?
Max Eigen.
Oh, Max Egan. It's Egan. I've been saying it wrong all the
I'm not necessarily on He talked about a notice of liability that it had to do with commerce law, which sits above all government law. It's an ancient law, and all governments are actually bound by it, but they don't tell the public about it. So I reached out to him just because of some of the geophysical engineering that's happening in New Zealand. And what he sent me was like how to go about filing the notice of liability. And the one that he sent me specifically was for 5G and it was for people that live in the States. So maybe email him if anybody's interested. It's a notice in which you have to do some legal stuff and do some mailing and things like that, but it has to do with holding personally responsible anyone who does the installation.
Right, does that take back your power?
Yes.
It's take back your power, yeah.
So, and
they're
my question
litigating.
for you would be, because I'm wondering, is that, it sounds really valid, would that be worth going through all of those steps? There's a lot of steps.
I absolutely think so. I very much admire Take Back Your Power, and they are litigating. There is litigation going on. It's because I don't trust the courts, and that I don't get too excited too fast about these things. But I'm very happy about them. I'm glad they exist, and it would be worth checking out, definitely.
You have a question?
Yeah. Have you considered that probably 90% of the people don't want to hear this? That their lives are okay now, they figure they'll be okay next week, and they don't want to hear it. I've heard this from a number of people.
No, I run into it all the time, and it's the choice. It's the choice, and it's not new, is it? I mean, a lot of people are just couch potato, go along with the program, try to stay out of. It's kind of like that story of Job. Don't take me, Lord, take someone else. And I don't mind that. What I'm saying here, I hope that I'm saying is, it's not numbers that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a certain quality of commitment. And with that quality of commitment comes the consciousness that I believe is really the last stand. That's the Alamo for this kind of thing. And I believe in that. I'm not a litigator. I'm not a march in the streets. I'm a writer, but I'm also a talker, a lecturer, and I do believe that consciousness, we haven't even begun to tap it. It's like I was saying to you. And we don't know where it'll end us. We don't really know until we try it. And, you know, I'm inviting people to try it. And the first step is learning. And, you know, I know a lot of you have trouble concentrating or are now dyslexic and can't read, or you can't remember what you just read because you've been worked on for over half a century to make you that way. And that media, the media is a very weakening agent. And so, you know, you'll have to take it slow. And, you know, I would like someday to put the books on tape. That's something that I really want to do. But I have to write this next one before I even can consider that. So learning, making lifestyle changes to protect your immune system and keep your consciousness high and mighty, really, is what I say. You know, it's not about being an Elana Freeland. It's about being who you are. And you came for certain purposes to this world. You had certain things in mind that you wanted to do here. And you must now remember those and figure out what you need to change in your lifestyle in order to continue that journey. Because that's it. I always remember, I used to work with Robert Bly, the poet. I used to be the storyteller that told the story that he would then analyze with a Jungian twist. And Robert Bly, he always felt in his book, I think, a little book on the human shadow, which I totally recommend. It's an excellent book. But anyway, he said that if we all did art every day and did what we really loved, just a few minutes a day, those bastards in Washington couldn't get anything out of us. And I really think he's right. I really think he's right.
First of all, I want to thank Elana and all of you for being here. And it was a great evening. Thank you for your questions. I'd like, before you leave, we've got, please stay in your seat. Paulette has something to comment on. One of our co-founders of Skywatch. Paulette?
Hi, my name is Paulette Navarro. So many people say, I understand this is a big problem, but I don't know what to do and what kind of difference am I going to make? So they don't get involved, but it is very important to get involved. Joanna Macy, the eco-philosopher, said, don't get concerned if you will succeed or not. Just do what your conscience tells you to do.
Very good.
Do your part. Do your share. So that's why I am asking you to join LA Skywatch or any other group, so that together we can be more powerful as a force. So if you want us to contact you to see how you can help, let us know. Write your name there on the sign-up sheet and say, please contact me. So we will call you. Okay, so please do not just go home and do nothing.
Turn the TV on.
Oh,
I'm so tired. I gotta turn the TV on. It's taking my brain.
What's the